Okay, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to model a night vision scope that you would use during nighttime operations for some kind of a military incursion or something like that. So let's go ahead and model this thing. First thing we need is some picture reference to show us what it is that we're going to model, or else we won't know what to model. So let's hit Alt and 6 on the keyboard to open up an image clip viewer. Let's go to File, click on Import, and what we want to do is import this image called night vision goggles. So go ahead and import that in, and what we get is a picture of a night vision scope here, which you can use obviously to see in the dark and see in nighttime low light conditions. So we're going to model this thing in a fair amount of detail, and it's going to take a while to model. I'm going to break this up across several videos, but in the end we're going to have a 3D model in XSI of, well, this night vision scope. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. Let's get to it. First thing I'm going to do is right click on this image, and I'm going to go ahead in this sub menu that opens up. I'm going to click on zoom half X. That way the picture's smaller, so we get some more real estate space here on our screen. Okay, so let's get started. In this camera viewport, I'm going to hit F12 to maximize the view. And we have to choose a part to start modeling from this object here. Now this object uses a lot of different types of strange shapes and different corners and curvature and things like that, which always makes it a challenge to model, but it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to model this detail in XSI. So let's kind of move along here a little bit faster here and start getting this thing modeled out. I'm going to start off by creating this bottom piece down here, which we can create easily using a primitive cylinder in XSI to start to get this shape out here. Then we'll work our way up and start building some of these other parts based off of other primitives. And then in the end, we're basically going to go ahead and put everything together. So let's start off with that cylinder I was just talking about. Let's go up here to Primitive, Polygon Mesh, Cylinder, and there's our cylinder. Here in the PPG, we're going to make a few changes. I'm going to change the base subdivisions down to 1, the V subdivisions down to 1, and as far as the U subdivisions, right now there's 8. So if we look at this this cylinder, we have 8 sides to it, and I think 8 sides is going to work out just fine. I'm going to leave it at 8 sides. Let me close that PPG. Okay, so here's our cylinder. Let me go over here to my shading options and switch to shaded mode. And then I'm also going to go to my shading options, and I'm going to activate headlight so I can see this better. Next thing I'm going to do is hit C on the keyboard to activate the rotate tool. And I'm going to rotate this on its side, and by holding shift I can rotate this down on its side. Again, I could have also come over here to the X rotation channel and the MCP and typed in 90 degrees and hit enter, and that would have done the same thing. So whichever way works best for you. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the scale tool here by hitting X on the keyboard. I'm going to scale this out a little bit like that. Start getting that the width right there of the night vision goggles. Something like this is going to look pretty good, and we could always change the scale and dimensions later once we're closer to the end of modeling this thing. Because right now we're too early in the modeling stages, we won't know exactly how much we have to scale this thing. Okay, so this is going to be this cylindrical part that's down here. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and start to create maybe this piece that's right here. Let me right click and go back to a normal zoom so we can see this better. And there's the piece right there. That's the piece that I need to create next. Well, I don't really need to necessarily, but I want to. So what I'm going to do is hit U on the keyboard with that cylinder selected to go to polygon raycasting mode. Select all these polygons here. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude that. And it doesn't look like anything happened, but it did. Hit V on the keyboard to activate the move tool and move this out a little bit like this. Okay, something like that's going to work out pretty good. Not too thick, pretty thin. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch to sub D mode. I'm going to do that easily by hitting the plus key that's on the number pad of the keyboard. So if I hit that once, you see it starts to get smooth out. I'm going to hit it a few times like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is hold down Control and use that same plus key on the number pad of the keyboard to bring up the wireframe cage of the sub D. That's much better. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these polygons here and I'm going to extrude them out a bit. So I'm going to go back to U, raycasting mode of polygons. I'm going to select this polygon, Alt, middle mouse button, click this polygon. That selects that entire loop of polygons. Next thing I'm going to do is hit Control D to extrude. I'm going to switch to the scale tool and I'm going to activate global mode and COG. And this way I can go ahead and scale this out. Now I want to be sure to scale only with the green and the red handles. So I'm going to move my mouse in between those two and you'll notice that the little yellow square in the middle flips and shows me that now I can scale in those two directions. So I'm going to go ahead and scale up a little bit like this, just a little tiny bit. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. And this time I'm going to scale that up a little bit more, like so. Okay. And once I do that, I'm pretty much set to go and I have the polygon set up and ready to go to start to create this sort of cogwheel shape that this little switch or whatever this is has. Okay, so it's pretty simple. What I'm going to do is go back to raycasting polygon mode by hitting U on the keyboard. Now with these polygons selected, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go down to extrude along axis, and you could see that we got some funny results, which is obviously not what we want. So what we're going to do to fix this is we're going to go ahead and take the merge option off, and now this is going to go ahead and start to create that sort of cogwheel shape that we're looking for. Okay, so let's take the length slider and turn it down a bit because it's a little bit too high. So we'll take it to something like this is pretty good. Now let's go to transform over here and we have to affect the scaling. Let me see if it's going to be the X scaling. So I'm going to take the X scaling and turn it down a bit like this. Okay, something like that's pretty good. So I went with close to 0.5. Let me close that PPG. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and add some new edges to this to go ahead and let me move that image clip viewer a little bit more out of the way. I need to add some edges here pretty much to straighten this out and start to get some more hard edges because right now it's too soft looking, kind of looks like jello or something. So we need to fix that, and that's actually going to be pretty easy to fix. What I'm going to do is hit I on the keyboard to go to raycasting edge mode. I'm going to select this edge here, then I'm going to hold down Alt and middle mouse button click this edge over here, and that will select that entire ring of edges all the way around this little cogwheel object. So I'm going to right click on the object and I'm going to go down to split edges with split control. And now I could use this ratio edge slider and move this edge around over here. So I want it to still retain a little bit of smoothness right there. I don't want it to be a perfect straight edge like the corner of a desk. I want it to still be a little bit smooth because in the real picture we can see it's actually pretty smooth. So something like this is pretty good. So we'll take it to, just to use a nice even number, 85 will be the ratio value that we'll use. Now I'm going to select this edge here, Alt and middle mouse button click this edge here to select that entire ring of edges again. I'm going to right click and go down to split edges with split control again. And let's go and place this to about right here is pretty good. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. So now if we do a quick little render region by holding down Q on the keyboard and drag a square around this, and let's use this anti-aliasing slider here to improve the quality. We can see we have a nice smooth edge here. It's not too hard and it's not too smooth. It looks kind of like the picture. But we still don't have the exact shape that we want with this object. To get rid of the render region tool, you can click on the little X right here, this little X, click on that, and you'll get rid of the render region. We need to sort of get this shape to come out a little bit better because it's not exactly looking like our picture, obviously. So let's go ahead and let's fix that. We can fix that pretty easily. Let's hit I to go into raycasting edge mode. I'm going to select this edge, Alt middle mouse button click this edge, and that'll select that entire ring of edges right there. And if we were to right click on the object and go to split edges with split control, we could bring this split down like this, and we can start to get a better shape to look more like the picture. But I'm going to close that and hit Control Z to undo a few times. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up doing the split to all of these little cogwheel pieces at the same time. So to do that, let me turn off the grid by hitting G on the keyboard. I'm going to hold down Shift and select this edge. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt and then middle mouse button click this edge to select that ring. So basically by using Shift instead of just Alt and the middle mouse button by itself, we can go ahead and select multiple rings here. So hold down Shift, select an edge, Shift Alt middle mouse button click to select the entire ring. So with some practice, once you get used to it, you can select these rings of edges very quickly. Okay, so now we have all those rings selected. So the next thing to do is to right click and let's go down to split edges with split control. And once we have this split, what we can do is move the split down, and that's not going to work. Edit that part out of the video. Edit that part out of the video. We're going to pick up and start again in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to refine the shape of this sort of cogwheel piece here, and we're going to do that pretty easily. Hit I on the keyboard to go to raycasting edge mode. Select this edge here, Alt and middle mouse button click this edge right there, and you'll pick the entire ring of edges. Simply right click, go down to split edges with split control, and let's move this split up like this. So we're going to move it to, say, I think 95 is going to look pretty good. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's select all these. Select an edge first, Alt and middle mouse button click this second edge to select an entire ring of edges. Simply right click and hit split edges with split control. And type in 95 for the ratio edge value, and that's what we'll get. So do the same thing for the rest of these. You can use the period key on the keyboard to quickly reuse the last command that you activated. So in this case, the last command we did was the split edges with split control. So as long as we don't do anything else like extrude or bevel or do anything else like that, all we have to do is select these rings and hit the period key on the keyboard, and then just type in 95 for the ratio edge value, and we can have these things done in no time. So these are actually looking pretty good. I like the way that they're coming out. Definitely looking pretty nice. Okay, hit the period key one more time. We're going to type in 95 for the ratio edge value, and there we go. Now we look at this, we got ourselves a nice little cogwheel sort of shape there. Kind of like the picture. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now we do have sort of this little piece that sticks out there, and this is a sub-D modeling tutorial, so hey, why not show you how to model that little detail, right? Let's go to raycasting polygon mode by hitting U on the keyboard. Select all these polygons down here. I'm simply going to scale them using the scale tool. I'm going to scale them down like this to something pretty small. Something like this is going to be pretty good. So maybe like that. Looks pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to hit Control D to extrude, and I'm going to move these new polygons out just a little bit. And then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again and pull these polygons out just a little bit. I'm going to hit Control D again to extrude and pull that out just a little tiny bit, just a hair. And the reason why we make those little short extrusions is because if we do that now, we don't have to come back later and pick the edges and split edges with split control. We basically just did it now in one shot. So What I'm going to do is hit Control D to extrude again. This time I'm going to scale this down a little bit like this, kind of like in the picture. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, pull it out just a little bit. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, and I'm going to move this one out like this. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, move it out just a little bit. Control D to extrude again, and scale this up a bit like this. And once you have that scaled up, all we have to do is hit Control D to extrude again, pull it out like this. Control D to extrude again. I'm going to pull it out this way, and then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again, and I'm going to scale this one down like this. Once I do that, I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. I'm going to pull it out to about here, hit Control D to extrude again, pull this out to about here, and at this point it's looking pretty much like the picture. It's kind of got this base cylinder, sort of this disc, then it's smooth here. There's no hard edge. It's very, very smooth and slopes in onto this sort of little knob round piece. So I think this is pretty much going to do it. Maybe I'll extrude one more time, scale it down like this, just to make that look a little bit more refined and nicer. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, do a quick render region, and that's looking pretty good. Okay, very nice, very nice. Okay, so we got this cylinder part pretty much done for the most part. So the next thing would be to look at our reference picture here of our night vision goggles and start to create some of these other parts. Like say this part here, then we have to create these parts, and we got a lot of details to go. So this is probably going to be the most complicated object to model in this tutorial, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll end this video here, and in the next one we'll pick up where we left off right here.